question I've got as a, beginner property developer, what should I be thinking? What should my first deal, like in your opinion, obviously, what do you think it should be the first deal that people do? Should it
Good question.
be like, hey, you know what? Screw it. Why start at one into two? I should just go straight into a 5 into a 15. Or hey, just maybe don't go 1 into 2. Maybe you can go 1 into 3. Or heck no,
Yeah.
the best place to start is X.
Yeah, I mean, typically I would probably suggest just a simple 1 into 2 where you can retain the existing, whether it be a corner block where you chop off the backyard or a hammerhead scenario, mostly because you get that rental income while you're doing your deal. So you're not going to be hemorrhaging money the whole time. Having said that, there's plenty of new clients that I speak to that have never really done property development before. They come from a bit more of a financial background, and they have the ability to do just a straight 1 into 3 straight away. And there's nothing wrong with going down that path either, provided that, that you're seeking the correct advice and you're going and choosing the correct property, because they're both going to make money at the end of the day. It's just that one of them, you're going to be paying for a house that you demo, plus then pay for builds, and then you might get paid back if you sell those houses or you start getting rentals. So, all of that's going to get factored in. Whereas the simple 1 into 2 where you can keep the existing, realistically, you can literally put a tenant in straight away in most instances, fence off the backyard, and then go do your division based on that fencing that you've put up. And so you get literally paid from settlement to hold that property. And depending on the area, it could be neutrally geared or very, very minimal negative geared.
Well, yeah. And there's so many after opportunities. Once that piece of land is there, you can sell that piece of land and then put that 250 grand into your front house and then have an incredibly cash flow positive front property, because you've only got, a $200,000 mortgage on it now when it was, 450, 500.
Yeah. Or depending on the scenario, again, some of the, obviously being a little bit younger back in the day, a lot of my friends, they were looking at their first homes, and so we were trying to find houses for them that they could potentially move into, and then they would subdivide the backyard off and then move into that one. They've now got a brand new house, so they don't have to worry about having any maintenance issues, etc. They sell off the front house, then they pay down a bunch of money off their brand new house, and then use the equity of that, then go buy another investment while living in a brand new house, So, so many opportunities, so many different avenues. I guess you could just choose your own adventure, you might say.
So when we're the first timer, so you're saying, a 1 into 3 is okay to kind of start with, but it's just get your head around the rules and what everything is going. What is the process? What is it going to look like for you?
Yeah. So like I said, so, like a 1 into 2, all of them, they're going to start with, obviously doing an appropriate amount of due diligence on finding the right sort of land. We obviously just picked that property randomly there at 700 square meters. Now that would probably be an okay 1 into 2, but, the numbers stacking in that's probably pretty unlikely unless you could keep that existing house, So some of the issues you might run into as well with 1 into 2s, your corner blocks, you got obviously potential easements, that could affect things. You've also got side entry pits or where your stormwater goes. That can affect driveways. Stobie poles, street trees, they can also affect driveways as well. So you need to be aware of this if you're trying to chop off a backyard or even doing a 1 into 3. They can factor in as well. They really can hinder where the driveway accesses go. But then also, generally speaking, if you're keeping an existing house, you're going to have a EWS, an effluent waste system, which is basically the sewage. And that's going to have an IP somewhere in a footpath or a crossover or somewhere like that. And that might not necessarily be where you want it. And it will actually cross over the new boundary inspection point.
Okay. Yep.
So that'll cross over potentially your new boundary. So you want to say chop off the backyard of a house, listed as a corner block, right? And the sewage from all the existing toilet, sinks, laundries, etc., they cross straight through the new block. You can't do that. So you got to sever that sewage point and then redirect that sewage onto a new IP. Now that IP, obviously you've got to install. That's part of a division process anyway. But depending on where you've got to go with it, sometimes you don't have amazing access. And so then you might end up paying SA Water to extend their sewage line to meet your house, which is, I think at the moment, it could be even around like 12 to 1400 a linear meter. Or do what we mostly do, and we pay a plumber significantly less than that, although still a cost that you should factor in. And it might end up being between like 5 and 10 grand, and then literally redirecting the sewage all the way around the house to get to the street. So
Which
something to
is a
think of.
lot more meterage, but still cheaper.
Insane that, yeah, it's like 50 meters redirection, but you're paying a person to do it instead of SA Water. And so it's a lot cheaper.
I wanted to take a step back because we're talking about sewerage, so we're going right into the
dirty bits,
the shit end of the sort of sticky. Before we even sort of start thinking about sewerage and inspection points and all that sort of stuff,
yeah,
what should somebody starting off? What should they do?
Just a lot of research. I know it sounds like boring and dumb, but honestly, like in 2008, I was literally spending every single lunch break, every hour outside of work, just looking at realestate.com. You need to know the market. You need to know what's sold, what's being sold. You know, it's pretty, even now today, you know, how often do I tell you guys about a property or vice versa, and we already know about it? You need to have your finger on the pulse. You know, having said that, you know, if you ask me about a suburb in Brisbane, I have no idea. Like, it's not my zone. You need to know what zones you're sort of in, and it should be within your price bracket, within the development zone that you'd be comfortable in developing. You know, there's no point looking at a CBD if you can't afford to build a skyrise. You know, likewise, if you're not looking at doing a rural development, maybe don't look out so far. So, you know, pick in suburbia, somewhere where you can afford, where the zone suits, and just know your market.
What's my minimum entry? What's my minimum entry into my first development type of thing?
Yeah, so obviously the generic answer would be, you know, 20% deposit. I'm a little bit against that. I maximize my LMI for the first few deals, many deals. The more of the bank's money I could borrow, the better. The least amount of cash I could put in, ideal. You know, I was going into some of these deals with, you know, only 20 grand deposit, maximize my LMI, and then spending the 30, 40 grand on reno and subdivision fees. So I'm all in for 80K, you know, and some of the deals, they might only make less than 100, but I'm nearly doubling my money, you know. So that's what I would probably be suggesting to people. I mean, obviously you pay LMI, you pay a premium, but if cash is the issue, if you don't have a 20% deposit plus 5 closing costs, then, you know, you may as well just pay the LMI and then use that extra percentage that you save on your loan to go pay for your subdivision, rather than having a house that's a rental that you now need to also then somehow come up with 45,000 to subdivide.
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you're, oh, no, I've got to save for another 12 months, 18 months. Well, it's like, well, LMI is just the cost of doing business. If I pay an extra $8,000, $15,000 in LMI, but I can do a deal that makes me $80,000 or $100,000, then it makes nothing but sense to pay the LMI and make the deal happen.
Yep. And like you're seeing, like some of these larger sites, you know, some of these people going into these larger sites, you know, these 15 plus developments, they're paying 9% to private lenders because, you know, they're just lending at a ridiculous amount because, you know, it's not secured against the property, or it's very loose, you know, about the development. So, you know, when you go with a bank and you're getting offered, you know, 5% interest or whatever like that, but you're only going to be able to get 80% loan, you know, that's going to obviously hinder what you can borrow, what your borrowing capacity is, regardless of your payback. If you don't have enough cash to go into the deal, then you just do it as miss out on the deal anyway.
Here is, what's the minimum frontage and land size one should consider targeting? Let's just, I imagine these are first time investor. So like, what are your kind of go-tos for a 1:2 or a retain and build? Yeah,
so general neighborhood, which is going to be covering most of South Australia, that's going to be 9 meters as a frontage, 300 square meters as a minimum land size, and that's for a Torrens title development. Now, if you go through for a terrace dwelling, which is where the dwellings are 3, it has to be 3 minimum for a terrace dwelling, you can go down to 7 meters. So that means obviously you only need 21 meters frontage. So you can get 3 on there. So that land size is 250. So typically speaking, I don't really look for land less than 750 because I would like to always have a contingency of a 1:3.
Yeah. Okay. So 750 with a 21 meter frontage. But the challenge that we have now is they get a premium on them because people know that they've got that extra kind of value add with that 21. But if it is opposite a park, like you've done a deal recently that's on a corner block that was under 750?
Correct. Yeah, 730, 725 or something like that. You know, so we're at odds. with the development plan at General Neighbourhood, but we are opposite a park, so we're going to get some dispensation for that. And the fact is we're going to meet every other requirement in the code. So for them to not allow the development go through on one discrepancy being under or around about a 5% discrepancy, it's going to be pretty hard for them to sort of hold their ground on that one. So, yeah.
What are some of the more creative strategies? Maybe they're advanced, maybe they're not advanced, but what are some of the more creative strategies that you're seeing around that have you a little bit excited? Are there anything like that that's floating around?
Great. I come up with the craziest ideas sometimes. I don't even know if they even work yet. There's just so many ways. Like the zone, obviously you've got group dwellings, terrace dwellings. There's just so many different ways you can chop a site up. And this is the thing, you've really got to just do your numbers on almost every single scenario and work out which way is going to be the best fit for you, profit-wise, and outgoings as well. Like a 5 and a 15. Do you just sell the house and land? Do you just go pay a designer or a builder to go design up 15 different houses, and then just go sell each block of land at your profit margin, and then the new buyers go build the house through the builder? Or do you literally have enough money to be able to build out 15 houses and sell brand new untouched houses? So yeah, that's a lot of capital.
And the problem is no one person really has, well, maybe they do, but they don't generally are bringing on investors that want a return on their investment, right? They want to get that capital back. So you have to sell those properties to be able to pay back the investors and then get your little return on investment as well. One thing that I haven't seen too much of in South Australia are duplexes, where it's two properties on one title. So I see duplexes in like in the council, what's it called? The housing commission areas. Forgot what you guys call it over there. The housing commission areas.
Yeah. They're like semi-detached houses. Yeah. A lot more typical, like in the more northern suburbs, there seem to be a lot more. I think they sometimes get called as masonettes, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, basically it has a central dividing wall, usually double brick house. It kind of looks like one house, but it's been separated. Actually, I reckon there are some down here as well that we see sort of in the Christie's Downs area. And yeah, they're on sometimes, I think ours are typically in two titles, but I think what you're alluding to is over in the eastern states is they have on one title, and then they obviously rent out one side to another. We are starting to see a little bit more of this with certain builders that we do designs for, where they're looking at maybe doing a one-bedroom unit on one side, fire-rated wall on the other, and then maybe a 2 or 3 bedroom unit on the other side. How council receive this is, we're still working through the nuts and bolts of it, but that's definitely something that we'll be looking at doing in the future as people start to need more houses effectively.
How long does the development process take for the demo and sell the land, and then how much is it for the time to build out and make it happen?
That's a good question.
In time?
Yeah. So typically speaking, you can get a development done. If you're in contract period for a month, typically 30-day settlement, you can start the development process in this same time. And then you'll be looking at, depending on your councils, obviously, you can be looking at anywhere between, say, that 1 month to get the approvals all the way to, say, sort of 6 months to get your titles. Your land sales can happen in that same time as well. So you can theoretically settle on the land and get the titles in that same week or same day.
Yeah, land, you can sort of, probably the longest time of land is actually to sell the land.
Yeah. So we try and, if we're going to have a deal and, get it under contract, start doing the division process, especially if it's just a land sale only, we'll try and get that land on the market ASAP, to try and make sure that we can lock in those contracts. Again, also land selling is the most stressful part for me. So, getting those contracts in place is one of my foremost things to do. And then for me, it's the formalities of just getting the division done.
Is there a way, are there some tactics that you can use to get a fixed price for your land? Like sell it to maybe not a home buyer, but what are some of the more creative ways to lock in a price? Yeah,
you could do a house and land package. That's definitely a way that we've done before, where you sort of go, what's the average sort of house selling for in this sort of an area? And let's just say in this Morphettvale Vale scenario, anywhere between 550 and 600 is what we're seeing house and land packages sell for. And so you work out that, if you can get it built for say 250, and then you go, well, I want to sell that land so the house and land package for 550. Well, all of a sudden you're going to sell your land for 300, aren't you? It's a lot more profitable selling as a house and land package. Obviously the risk comes from the new purchaser. They buy the land off you. Once the titles go, they've purchased, they're done. They've got to deal with the builder. If the builder sort of, increases the prices on them, that's out of your control. And that's unfortunate, that does happen sometimes. So, maybe you leave some contingencies in there. I like to leave a little bit more profit in there for the next person. Maybe you sell your land at 270 with a fixed price contract of 250, So then that leaves a bit more profit in there for the next person buying. It could just be a first home buyer, could be a retiree, whatever. They've got a bit more buffer in case that the builder increases the price on them. And you still get your money at the end of the day. You got 270.
Yeah.